Right, thanks for joining us again on the New Sentinel, everyone. I'm Chukwuka, and today we're diving right into the fire. Zohran Mamdani, the NYC mayoral candidate, facing these political calls for denaturalization and deportation. Now, let's be clear. Mamdani is a naturalized citizen. In the U.S., stripping somebody's citizenship isn't just, rolling out a new city ordinance. It's a high bar, legally, nearly impossible unless you can prove outright fraud during naturalization or ties to terrorism, that sort of thing.
That's spot on, Chuck. I'm telling you, there's a lot of folks out there acting like you can just sign a paper and poof, someone's gone. Doesn't work like that in this country. First Amendment is big here, protects political speech, even the stuff you might not like. I get folks are throwing out Mamdani's rap lyrics and old statements, trying to weaponize them, but legal threshold is military grade. Way tougher than people think.
And it's dangerous, Duke, because these legal nuances are rarely explained in mainstream debates or social media. Instead of discussing the complexity, people latch on to divisive sound bites. I have seen it before. Past statements, even artistic ones, get yanked out of context to delegitimize a candidate, especially one from an immigrant background. But weaponizing words is much easier than meeting the evidentiary standards needed for actual denaturalization.
I agree, Olga. In my experience, most folks, including lawmakers, barely know what goes into denaturalization. Reminds me, Duke, you ever remember when Sergeant Hernandez was up for deportation after a bar fight on base in Germany? They tried to use his offhand joke on social media as grounds for subversion. Lawyers shot that down hard. It took, 2 years of wrangling, all because of misunderstanding, deliberate sometimes, about what really crosses that legal line.
Yeah, Graves, I remember. A lot of nerves, a lot of chest thumping. But once the actual immigration law got involved, most of the noise faded. Folks talking legal smack, but not actually reading the book. Similar here. Unless there's actual fraud, Mamdani ain't going anywhere, no matter what headlines try to make you believe.
And look, last thing on this, the reason this legal stuff goes misunderstood is it gets mixed with politics. With polarization so high, it's always send him back or he's a threat, not actual law. That's a whole civic failure right there. But it's nothing new, and in a way, we've seen it over and over. Politics rising above the law, at least in narrative. But the courts, they move by the book.
This is where I want us to look harder, how technology is twisting this whole Mamdani story. Between AI-generated videos, social media echo chambers, and selective reporting, both misinformation and counter-narratives just explode, don't they? People see a deep fake or an out-of-context meme, and suddenly they think they know the man's heart. We're not talking about just bad reporting anymore.
And that's true, Olga. The speed at which lies travel now is mad, honestly. We talked a bit about this on our episode with the AI surveillance, right? Once a rumor lands, it's got wings, and the correction might never catch up. For Mamdani, every out-of-context quote gets spun as a threat, even if he's quoting old lyrics, not setting policy. It's the dark side of tech amplifying division.
There's also the angle of narrative mapping, where Mamdani gets painted as either this brave symbol of democratic inclusion or by some as the poster child for everything wrong with immigration. All extremes, little nuance. Media chooses which themes fit their audience. Honestly, reminds me of how conflicts get framed in the military. Heroes and villains, no middle ground. And those middle grounds, sometimes they just disappear.
You know, Ethan, that reminds me of a political detainee case I covered in Moldova. Media there used selective video clips to portray an activist as a radical. It didn't matter what she actually did. For Mamdani, the technology only raises the stakes. With deepfakes and AI manipulation, even a careful candidate can look like a villain overnight. That's why media literacy, knowing where your info comes from and how it's shaped, is truly essential now.
Yep. Look, back in the Army, we used a simple rule. Trust, but verify. But on social media, people see it, they share it. don't check squat. So those with agendas weaponize tech fast. For Mamdani, this means every supporter better know the narratives being shaped, sometimes by bots, sometimes by talking heads chasing clicks. Critical thinking is armor these days.
And that's part of why this story gets legs. It's not just about one guy. Mamdani's journey from immigrant to mayoral nominee should be a civic win. Spear Report calls it a powerful arc, yeah? But the noise threatens to drown that out. What we, listeners, voters, all, gotta ask is who's drawing the map and why. Otherwise, the narrative isn't yours anymore.
All of this, it takes a toll on actual people. Immigrant communities are watching public weaponization of citizenship, and you can't blame folks for feeling fear or maybe even betrayal when something as personal as your naturalized status starts getting thrown around in political fights. We end up with both fear and, weirdly, more solidarity. How's that hit you, Chukwuka?
You know, Ethan, for me, when I first landed in the States, I felt nothing but pride. Getting my citizenship, swearing the oath, it's real, very real, you know? But every time I hear talk about yanking someone's American status over politics, there's a shadow of anxiety. If it can happen in the news, even if it's a bluff, it makes you second guess the thing you work so hard for. But at the same time, I've seen people come together, defending each other, demanding more civic education. There's hope in that, man.
That's the delicate line, isn't it, Chukwuka? The threats, Islamophobia, anti-immigrant rhetoric may grow, but so does collective action. Community organizations step up, educate about denaturalization law, rally for due process, and create space where people feel seen. That's an opportunity here, using the moment to build civic literacy and help people trust the legal protections they already have.
Look, I'm a straight shooter. I get worried seeing the trust in our institutions erode. I'm conservative, but citizenship, it ought to mean something solid. This politicking, using someone's naturalized status as a weapon? Even my Army training says you can't have unit cohesion with fear in the ranks. We gotta educate and engage on the real laws, not just play to the outrage machine.
Yeah, Duke, that's true. Real talk. Restoring faith starts with honest conversations, just like we're having now. And it's on all of us to defend the principles that protect everyone who's earned their place right here, no matter how loud the politics get.
Couldn't agree more. Wraps right in with our last few episodes too. Justice, trust, narrative. We'll keep tracking this and other stories where law, media, and public life collide. Appreciate all of you for weighing in with heart and some hard truth.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and for thinking critically. These moments are about more than any one candidate. It's about the soul of civic inclusion. See you next time.
Stay sharp, folks. Don't let the headlines outpace your common sense. Glad to be with y'all, as always.
All right, that's it from us on the New Sentinel. Thanks, everyone. Stay informed. Till next time, take care and God bless.